In this video we're going to do something a little bit different than usual. I'm going to talk about which guitar you should buy. Now what I mean by that is what guitar is going to suit you and your requirements depending on your playing and depending on the hand size you have and all that. Now when it comes to buying a guitar, what this video is going to be mostly my opinion or how I approach this, because it's very important. So what I do is there are two things actually to think of when it comes to buying the guitar. Is the sound is one thing, and the other thing is the comfortability. Now when I say sound, what I mean by that is if it's a Blanca or if it's a Negra, or from which luthier you're going to buy, which one you're going to choose. And even if it's a Blanca, you can go for, let's say, the cedar top or the spruce, or if it's a Negra, you can have the Brazilian rosewood or Indian rosewood. These are the most common woods, I would say. Okay, and then there's the comfortability, which in my opinion is way more important. Okay, because I think it doesn't make any sense really to get a guitar that's extremely sounding amazing, but you cannot play it. Like if you want to go to a concert, you will say, no, I will not take this one because it's too uncomfortable for me, so I will keep it home. Or if you want to record an album, yeah, this part is very difficult here, so I prefer not using it. Eventually you're going to say that, right? So comfortability and playability is the most important in my opinion, and then comes the sound. So when I say playability, first would be the scale length, which is going to determine how big the guitar is on the left hand, the distribution of the frets. Okay, this is the first point. The second point would be the action here, how much you have to press. In Spanish they say the pulsación here, how much you have to press to get the sound, right? And then there's a third point, which is the neck, if it's a C neck or a D neck. So some necks in the back, you see sometimes they are straight, more straight on the back, and some necks are C. I personally prefer the C neck. This one is also a C neck. Now for the right hand, we have the string tension, let's say, which is obviously adjustable if you change the strings, the tension of the strings, really. But this can be affected by the scale length also, which we will be talking about a little bit later. And the second thing on the right hand, which is crucial, is the separation of the strings. Like from the distance from the first string right here by the nut to the sixth string, how wide it is. Let's get into a little bit more details on each point. Okay, so first when I say the scale length, this from here to here, it's going to be the distance between this nut right here and this nut right here. So the scale length is going to determine, like I said before, the distribution of the frets, how much you have to open your fingers to get to the chord, or to the fret, I mean. And the tension is going to change of the strings, because obviously if you think about tying a string from this point A to this point B, this much, it's going to have a certain tension, right? Now if you bring these two points closer, the tension of the string is going to be less. This is what's happening here on the guitar. So the higher, the bigger the scale length, the more tension the guitar is going to have. Now it doesn't mean that if you have a big sized guitar that it's going to be just high tension always. You can adjust that by putting lower tension strings, for example. That's fine if you're okay with the playability on the left hand to be big. This guitar right here is 666 millimeters, so it's considered very big actually. I tend to a little bit more effort to reach, probably. I don't know if you noticed, but it's harder for me to get to the frets, especially putting chords like this, for example. It's more difficult. Okay, so these 2 points, it's going to be how much you open the fingers here to stretch and the tension of the whole thing itself. Now for the action on the left hand here. If you have a guitar with high action, it's going to make you more tired, or tired more easily, so you're not going to be able to practice as long. You might feel even pain in the thumb here, especially because if you're pressing too much, or if you're putting lots of bar chords, then you're going to get more tired here on the left thumb especially, I mean. So in general, it's going to make you more tired, and it's going to be more difficult to reach the notes and to press them. So you might make more mistakes even. So I highly recommend a guitar, to avoid a guitar with high action on the left hand, okay? I will get into the measurements a little bit at the end of the video, okay? Now, something that I talked about before, which was very clear, the D shape neck here, or the C. I prefer the C. This one is going to determine how you place your thumb on the back, the feel of the fretboard itself, of the neck. If you have the D shape, you might be more, I don't know, some people maybe feel more comfortable putting the thumb like this on a flat surface, let's say here. I prefer the C. I still prefer the C shaped neck here. I feel more comfortable with the thumb on the back. That's all to say about that, really. Now for the right hand, talking about the separation of the strings here, the distance between the first and the sixth string. Like I said before, this is crucial. This is very important, at least for me. So I had to sell a Manuel Reyes because of this. Like, it was too narrow. I had a Manuel Reyes before that was like 55 millimeters originally here, which was too narrow for me to play. So this is very important, because the narrower it is on the right hand, the more compact you have to be playing, which some people believe, or that it's good to have compact playing, but I found out that it's not natural. So I have a video even playing La Barrosa from Paco de Lucia on that Reyes, and you can see I'm playing it okay, not that bad, but I wasn't feeling good. I wasn't feeling comfortable. I felt all the time that I was keeping my hand closed to fit into the guitar, which is not good. So like I said, this is going to affect how much you are moving your fingers on the right side, let's say, or right hand. If you have a little bit wider strings here, then you can feel a little bit more free, or your hands will move more because it's just wider, right? Just makes sense that way. So now I'm going to talk about the measurements I look for in a guitar when buying a new guitar, let's say, and talking a little bit about if having smaller hands or a little bit slightly bigger hands, your options, what I think about it, okay? So first, starting with the scale length, the standard length here from this nut to this nut, like we said before, is 655 millimeters. This is the standard, which is the most recommendable, I believe. Okay, if you want to go a little bit bigger than that, 660, it's fine. Up to 664, it's getting a little bit big on the big side, let's say. But the standard is always 655 millimeters, which is what I look for. And then moving on to the pulsación, or the action, here on the left hand. So here, the lower the better, really. Depends how much your guitar can take. Some guitars can go very low and still no buzzing because of the good construction, let's say. It has to be all equal, so the wood, the fretboard and the strings, if they are all equal or straight, then, and also depending on the bridge, it's more construction side, but the lower the better, really. The lowest that your guitar can take, it's better. Now this is going to affect the tension as well. So the lower the strings on the here, let's say, I forgot to mention that before, but this affects also obviously the tension of the strings. So if you have the low action, the tension is going to be lower. If you have higher action here, the tension of the strings are going to be slightly higher as well. Okay, now the standard measurement for the action on the left hand, if the guitar is really good, you can get, if you can get to 2.5 millimeters, that's really good. Some guitars can go lower, which is extreme, and it's really, really good if they can handle that. But starting from 2.5, let's say, it's already a lot, and it would be very comfortable that from that. And then 2.7, I would say more normal guitars can go from 2.7, 2.8, up to 3, 3.2 max. Let's say 3.5 is starting to get high already. So what I look for is at least somewhere between 2.5 to 3.2, I would say. This is standard for all. So even if you have smaller or bigger hands or whichever it is, this should be for all. So 2.5, 2.7, whichever it is, for all sizes. Okay? So now for the right hand, for the separation of the strings between the first string and the sixth string. This one you can measure from the bone here, right by the bone. You can see the distance. I would say the standard measurement for that is around 58 to 59 millimeters. It's ideal to play, so that it's not too narrow and not too wide. This is very important. It also affects your placement of the hand, because if you have narrower strings here, you are going to, like I said, just more compact. You're going to be closing more. It's like putting from the fifth string and playing picado on the first, like this. This could be the situation if you have very narrow situation, then it's going to be like this, right? Whereas if I have this measurement here, this is 61.5. It's very big, actually, too big. And it's not the most ideal for me even. I would say this is too big, but still, just to show you now for the video, look, if I put my hand, you can see that my hand is comfortable and it's open like this. It's not too closed. I don't have the hand all too closed. I can feel more comfortable placing the hand like this and play, right? Now, if you want to go for a little bit smaller sized guitar, I would recommend somewhere from 650 millimeters to 655, really. I don't recommend going less than that, like less than 650, because you might get used to it. If you feel really comfortable with that certain guitar that you get, that's smaller than 650, and you feel that you will have it for a long time, or every time you buy a guitar you will get that same measurement, that's probably fine. But in general, I don't recommend that you go lower than 650, because if you get used to it too much, then you will be never able, or going to be very difficult to get back to be able to play the 655 and up, or 655. So I would recommend sticking to 650, unless in a special case, if you really want to go a little bit less, that's up to you, really. Okay, that's for the left hand. Like I said, the pulsation, the action here is going to be the same for all. Now for the right hand, I would recommend somewhere between 57 and 58 millimeters on the right hand here. So not too wide, because it might cost you more. Jumping between one string and the other, if you're going fast, it might feel comfortable to a certain limit. Like if you're playing just chords, it will probably feel comfortable for you. That's really good, I can move more freely, that's fine. But then where it really becomes a challenge is when you're going fast, especially playing picado fast. You're going to find yourself jumping a lot between the strings. So I recommend, if you want to go for a smaller size, again, guitar, between 57 millimeters to 58 millimeters here. Like not too less than that could be possible, depending on the size of the finger. How thin or thick it is also matters a lot, which I will get to that later. Now a little bit bigger, if you feel that you have bigger hands and you want to a bigger sized guitar, in my opinion, stay to 655 millimeters, or you can go up to 664, or this is 666, a little bit too big, but my opinion is sticking to the 655, because then you're going to be playing very comfortably on it, right? You're going to dominate that fretboard. If you have big hands and playing on the 655 standard size is going to be very comfortable. It's going to be convenient. So I would go for that, really. Okay, and up to 664 or 66 is fine. Would be also fine. And now I want to talk about the hand just a little bit. The hand size. Some people get confused sometimes when they see long fingers. There are two things. When we say you have big hands, we're not just talking about the fingers, really. So the fingers are one thing and the palm of the hand is another. Some people can have short fingers but a big palm, right? That is making you reach the frets easier. If you have a wider palm, let's say from here to here, then you can reach more frets. Whereas some people have a little bit smaller palm but long fingers, then it's also good, but the balance between these two is best. Having a big palm and standard or too long fingers is good, so that you can reach more. You might have a little bit shorter fingers, but you might have the big palm, so you can reach more than you think you can. Okay, this is very important. That's about the size for mostly for the left hand speaking. Now for the right hand, the thickness of the fingers affect a lot. So if you have long and thin fingers, my fingers are like this, long and thin, so the fingers get synced in more between the strings. So I need a little bit smaller or narrower spaced strings. I would go for 59 or 60, let's say. Here it's most comfortable for me, okay, because the fingers are pretty thin, so I prefer having a little bit narrower than this. I would still go for standard, which is 58, 59 I mentioned. Even 60 for me, I feel very comfortable, depending on the thickness of the finger. Some people have very thick fingers, that's why they use a little bit wider. Then you need wider, obviously, depending on the thickness of the finger. Okay, so you have to check all that, and then you can decide on the guitar you want. So this is what I think about the measurements of the guitar, what to go for. These are the most basic measurements I talked about, like mostly the scale length, the action, the measurement between here and there. All the rest should be mostly up to the luthier, but these things you have the right to ask for what you want. Okay, like the luthier cannot tell you, no, it has to be 3.5 millimeters, let's say here, or no, this is the standard here from 6th to 1st. It's supposed to be 62 millimeters, let's say, or 56, let's say, very small. So these things you have to be careful from. You have to ask. You have to know what you want, and all the rest is up to the luthier, obviously. Or there are more details, of course, you can ask for, but the most basic ones are what I talked about. And like I said, the rest would be up to the luthier, how they build inside and the sound and all that. And again, depending on your choosing, how you want the sound, going for a Blanca with a little bit brighter sound, or for a Negra with a little bit more profound, deeper sound, and cedar or spruce. So this is all what you prefer, your preference for sound, let's say. But the measurements are very important to keep in mind, and knowing what you want. Okay, that's what I think, at least. I hope that was helpful, and I will see you next time in the next video. Okay, cheers.